Hey guys, my name's Massimo, and today we're going to talk about all the modifications I've done to my 2013 Mustang GT. I've had the car for about a year now, and I did not plan to do as many modifications that I have had on the car so far. It's not a crazy build yet, but it's getting up there with the amount of mods I've done. So let's talk about them today. We're going to go through the suspension parts that I have, the power adders, and some of the cosmetic items, and then just what are my favorite mods I've done to the car since buying it. So let's start off with the suspension parts that I put on the car so far. A few months ago, I installed Fortune Auto 500 coilovers on this car, and I love them. When I'm pushing this car through a corner, there's next to no body roll, and since it's a daily driver, comfort was important to me, so I didn't want to cheap out on a set of coilovers. These things are so comfortable when I'm just driving around. Bumps in the road don't feel bad at all. It takes them with ease. And as you can see, the car is pretty low. It's not like it's high up where I'm accommodating with the spring. It's a pretty low car and it's still super comfortable. I ended up going with 8 kilogram front springs and 5 kilogram rear springs for spring rates. And I think that was the right choice. That's what Fortune Auto recommended to me. And so far I could say I love them. Other than that, I put a set of Whiteline adjustable sway bars on the car, front and rear, a BMR adjustable panhard bar, because you need that if you're going to be lowered, J&M lower control arms with J&M's lower control arm relocation brackets, which is super important if you're going to be lowering the car. You need the relocation brackets, and an upper control arm and mount. So when I do pulls on this car, the rear end is super planted, and I would say that's thanks to all the rear suspension parts I put on this car. They really help to keep the rear end planted and minimize wheel hop as much as possible. So super happy with all the suspension parts I've put on so far. Now moving away from suspension, we're gonna go into power adders. All the things I've put on the car to really add power to it. So starting off, I have a set of Cook's long tube headers on the car. The size is 1 3/4 inch. I did not go with the 1 7/8 inch size a lot of people go with. A lot of people do that because they're gonna end up boosting the car, putting a supercharger on it or a turbo. I'm not really planning on doing that. If anything, I'm really planning on doing a max effort NA build on this car. So I did not want to go with the 1 7/8 inch. I wanted to go with 1 3/4. That way the car is really able to breathe. Moving past the headers, I have Cook's 3-inch mid pipe that goes into an H pipe, and it does have cats on it. And then I just installed some MagnaFlow resonators on the car, which I absolutely love. I think they sound phenomenal. So I'll have a video coming out soon on those. And then that is paired to Corsa Sport axle back, which are quad tips because quad tips are cool on an S197. So that's pretty much what completes the exhaust on this car. Other than that, I have a JLT Series 2 cold air intake, a Lund racing tune, really pushing the power out of the headers and the intake and all the other power adders in there. And then one other thing that I really think makes this car a really good driver's car is the MGW short shifter I have in there. I think it's the best short shifter you can get for an S197. It moves so good. It shifts like butter every time. And I've had it in there for probably about a year and zero problems with it. I love it so much. I would highly recommend it. And then I do have a GT500 cooling fan in the car because my cooling fan went out. Good time to upgrade. And then moving on to my wheel setup, which I don't see this wheel setup too often unless it's a really track dedicated S197. I have Apex SM10 wheels. They're 19 by 10 all the way around the car, so I have a square setup. And those are all wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, and the size is 285, 35, 19. So that way I can rotate the tires front to back when they're getting low on the back, because we all know Mustangs like to spin tires. That way I can rotate them and get the most life out of them. And then those wheels are sitting on ARP extended wheel studs and MSI open-end lug nuts. The MSI lug nuts are yellow, which I think is a really cool touch for some reason. I just like putting splashes of color that are weird on cars. So I do like my yellow lug nuts and my blue center caps. I think that adds a weird flair to the car and it just gives it some spice. Moving on to some of the cosmetic items, I do have an OEM Boss 302 grille, an OEM Boss 302 front lip, and an OEM Shelby GT500 rear valance. So that's pretty much it for the cosmetics. I really haven't touched much on this car at all. There's no extra side skirts or hood vents or anything like that. No spoiler yet. All of that is stock. I just really like the stock look of this car, and if I were to spend money on the car, I'd rather just throw it into something like a power adder or a suspension mod. And for some of the last mods I have here, the braking setup. So I have the OEM 4-piston Brembo brake calipers that come with the car if you have the track pack. And then I run G-Lock R8 race pads for my race days. So whether that's autocross or canyon driving, or if I ever bring it to a track day, that's what I run. I find I really like their R8 pads because they still give a quick bite for autocross because you really don't have that much time to warm up your brake pads. So they give it that quick bite when the pads are cold still, but they still last a long time. They still really give a good amount of braking even when they get warm. So if you did want to go with more of a track dedicated brake pad, I would probably suggest G-Lock's R10 or R12 series. because you have some time to warm up the brake pads and things like that, and then they won't fade nearly as quickly when you really are getting them really warm. But then if you're more of an autocross person, the R6 pads are really good just because they give it that really quick cold bite. So I did kind of in that middle range, I got the R8 pads, but not on the street. On the street, I run G-Lock GS1 street pads because they make pretty much no noise. They last way longer. The life of them is much longer than the R8 pads. And they just don't produce as much brake dust, so you keep the wheels cleaner, which is cool. And all of that is paired with Moto's RBF 600 brake fluid. So I missed a few mods, which we're gonna go over here in a second, but in terms of most of the mods, that's it. Now, some of my favorite mods, I have Recaro Pole Position bucket seats in the car, and yes, I daily drive this car, but I absolutely love the seats. I think they're so comfortable and they keep you just absolutely planted in a corner. So if you're going canyon driving or autocross or track days, I love these seats. You don't move an inch of them at all. And then I've had non-car friends that fall asleep in these seats. They're just so comfortable, which I really love about them. And then we talked about the MGW short shifter, one of my favorite shifters on the market. I really think that is a really good mod if you're going to modify your Mustang. And lastly, one of the biggest things I think changed this entire look of the car is the Fortunato 500 coilovers, or just coilovers in general. Lowering the car is going to give it a completely different look. And I really like how it turned out when I dropped this car. I didn't think I needed it at all. I thought the car looked really good on the old suspension, which was conies and some Steeda springs. But once I dropped the car and lowered it, I realized this car definitely needed to be lowered. It looks way better. So I'm super happy I did that. If you guys are looking to build an S197, hopefully you can grab some inspiration from this video. Maybe you thought of a few mods that you liked on this car and you want to throw on your car. So if you need any of the links of my modifications, most of them are going to be in the description below if you want to check that out there. And I do a lot of Mustang content on this channel. It's mostly modifying it or bringing it to autocross days or anything like that. So if you want to follow along for cool car content, definitely subscribe. I appreciate it. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.